what do you think is probably an argument that they commonly address or that they commonly use against Protestants when it comes to Mary? That they kind of know that the Protestant will kind of stumble over, and so for example, like obviously, like her being a virgin, right? Well, we point to the passages that say that that Christ had brothers, but then like, oh no, well, if you go to the Greek, that could be used as cousins, and that leaves us like, what, So when it comes to all the Marian dogmas, what do you think that they use more often, because it's kind of easy for them to stump a Protestant?
Yes. So it's interesting. I think there's 4 Marian dogmas. Robert can feel free to correct me at any point, but everything funnels out of this Immaculate Conception view. It kind of goes back to Luke 1:28, which we can talk about here in a minute. And so from that, think about this. If Mary was immaculately conceived and sinless, well, then the child that she produces is going to be free from the stain of original sin. So what I'm positing is, by necessity, she can't have any more children because they'd be born without the stain of original sin. So they have to go against the common language of the New Testament, what clearly shows us that Jesus has brothers. So me and Matthew have talked about this. Well, he said that word doesn't always mean brothers. He's right. But the natural word for brothers is used. And there's a Greek word for cousins that's not used. So they have to go against the grain to kind of protect this weirdness of if she had more children. And so, and I can't remember the verse off the top of my head, but it says that Mary did not know intimately her husband Joseph until they had Jesus. So that implies that they did know each other like a married couple until after the fact. And there's verses that show that he's the firstborn. Implies there's more to be born. But they have to go against the grain, I think, because they've opened up a can, right? They've opened up this can of worms of, oh no, she had more kids, so they would be immaculately conceived, and it gets in kind of to this weird realm. But I think how they can trip up Protestants is by appealing to these vast parallels. So something that Matthew said in his debate was that Luke used 6 parallels that are just inescapable. You can't miss it. You're going to stand before God. So this is an emotional appeal. You're going to stand before God, and he gave you the 6 parallels, and you're going to say it wasn't convincing to me. Well, this is where exegesis, hermeneutics, context means everything. And by the way, there are true types and parallels, but let Scripture inform us of what those are. One of my main arguments is that Adam was a type of Christ. How do I know that? The Apostle Paul told me in Romans chapter 5, right? So I think a Protestant typically doesn't know how to interact with that so much. And another line of reasoning that sounds confusing, or how do you respond to this, is Luke 1:28 talks about how Mary is the favored one of God. Oh, favored one, or they translate full of grace. And so the line of reasoning is, if she's full of grace, then there's no room for moral defect. And the thing that the thing that Matthew kept bringing up, and I don't think I did a good job in the debate, and I wish when you go back, you wish you would have done things so different, is he kept appealing to Genesis 3:15. He made the point that enmity always means polar opposite ends. So check this out. He's saying you got Satan over here, pure evil. And then Mary, the woman, is at enmity with Satan. So she must have been without sin. Yeah. This is bizarre, because that's not what that word necessarily means, much less the context doesn't demand that. And then it does contradict other portions of Scripture. I wish I could have went back and said, okay, let's talk about this whole enmity thing. What you do get, the interpretation that's consistent with the entire Bible, is that the line of Eve that is leading up to this virgin birth, right? And because I agree that the woman's seed is an allusion to the virgin birth. I don't necessarily think it's only talking about Eve, but she's definitely the starting point. The offspring of the woman. Now, check this out. Mary is a woman of God. She is submitted to him, and she, by that definition, is at enmity with the devil, who is directly opposed against the saints, the holy angels, and God. That's the enmity that's being talked about, not this weird argument that Satan is, the embodiment of evil, and then Mary then is the other end of the spectrum. Right. You can make that kind of case with anything you want. So it's some of those things I think that will trip up a Protestant.